coaching skills, and I have to find out how many hours I completed, because I completed over like 100 and something hours
That's awesome.
of coaching, of hands-on coaching. So I love working with people. I love developing people. We just, nowadays there's so much focus on, I want to say, on achievement and success, and we forget people need motivation. They need to be engaged and they need to be acknowledged. It's not just about money. They need to be acknowledged, and values are important. It's so important to find the alignment with my folks, with our employees, and I think nowadays more than ever, that's really an important HR role. That it's sad, but I see us going back to when I first got into HR in 1990. 1990. We were called, that was the transition from personnel, which is still a term the public sector uses, to HR. And I really see us going back that way now, to where it's just numbers and less about people. They're taking the human side out of it. But anyway, that's my spiel on really how I view HR.
Yeah, that's good. That'll help with your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, I just and I think I don't know if I have it on my LinkedIn. I might have put it blurred, but I believe it. I think HR, our role is to find balance between the company's needs, the employees' needs, and the customer's needs. And one can't suffer at the expense of the other. Everybody has to, there has to be a balance between all three. So
I had a question for you. What did you do in terms of designing accountability measures at this specific company?
I don't know. Like, so can you clarify?
Yeah,
probably nothing. I don't know.
Probably nothing. You didn't, like, it's an HR practice, right, to ensure that there's accountability in every job position?
Are you mean just like standard job descriptions? Is that what you're after? Like,
no, like, for example, there's like 3 strikes rules that HR folks might implement across their division in order to improve accountability. There might be like an attendance tracking mechanism. Like, there's a lot of things you can do to ensure that people are responsible and performing optimally, right? Did you do any of that here? Anything to improve work performance, or was it mostly like morale-based stuff that you were doing?
Yeah, and the morale-based stuff would be informal, but I don't. You know what? We really didn't. That was not a focus of HR, and I think that was not. I think that also. Although when you talk about accountability, it seems like a negative, but done well, it's a positive, because people know where they're at. There's no surprises. Right. And that was the beauty of doing the starting to do the performance management stuff, because I don't think we were giving enough feedback, and our supervisors. A lot of our supervisors at both locations had been with the company for a long time, so they really lacked those skills. And we tried, I should say, tried to have some classes, but management, especially under Mike Markowitz, great guy. It's just that he wasn't the president; he was the king, and he wanted full control, so he didn't really want his people trained. He wanted to be the king. And so I think the accountability piece, I think it really was missing. Besides the standard, yes, we have points procedures for attendance. And we would pull the job descriptions when it was handy. Like, okay, now, this person is not performing. Here's their job description. Let's put a performance improvement plan, put a PIP together for them. So, I did create PIPs when we needed to, but oftentimes I think the PIP, unfortunately, was a failure on the supervisor's part.
Got it. What about when you were recruiting people? Did you do any structuring of benefits packages, and did you also forecast staffing needs?
What do you mean by the benefits?
Did you structure them? Like, did you draft what that would entail, like what they would be receiving, what their pay would be, what
Oh,
other benefits they would
um,
receive?
well, I guess so. But it seems so informal, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this
Well, I
is
mean,
this is just like, the job
maybe,
that you sent me, the one, that's in
yeah,
Riverside. I'm just kinda going through it to see if we covered everything.
yeah, no. So, and that was just something that, by the way, that was just something that I saw. That I'm like, yeah, I mean, that could be something. But so, well, as part of the, I mean, I'm the one that would create um, the employment offer. So yeah, all of that would be in there. However, and I did go off on some of them depending on the hire, but our benefits would be standard. I'd have to look at obviously their level within the organization, their level of their seniority or leadership level. So we might have to play with simple things like vacation. I never, if there was a bonus, I could look at the bonus structure based on existing staffing people. But if it came to sales, that would be something our VP of sales would introduce if there's bonuses for sales.
I see.
Um, but yeah, I could determine salary ranges based on internal and external equity. But again, our benefit packages, I was thinking more of health insurance, but when it comes to vacation, yeah, that was negotiable, but I'd have to see. Again, I'd always look at internal equity and see what my limits were, and then before I made the offer, I could put it together, but I'd always run it for approval before to the president.
And what about staffing, forecasting staffing needs? Did you do any of that?
The only time that we would do that, I would do that with the union or manufacturing team, not with the office admin team. Um, the
I see.
office the office admin group is always kind of run off the cuff. Um, in fact, I didn't, but I did want to initiate like a succession planning, but with our turnover, it's impossible. Um, but I thought it would help reduce turnover if people saw where they might be going, in the future. But for the union or the manufacturing teams, we would do that annually um, because we knew where our staffing, we would look at current staffing. We would look at current staffing. Then we would look at trending for the year because we can look and see where our sales are projected, especially when we're coming up on the busy season, whether it's summer for Phoenix or winter for Colton. And then based on our projections for sales, we could tell um, where we're going to need our people, whether it's welders, assemblers, final assembly, maybe in the paint line. We'd have to take a look and see where our bottlenecks were the year before.
Okay, that makes sense. And
But
then
that was pretty standard. But again, we would get together the VP of operations, myself, supervisors, and then say, okay, well, and then we might it's a small group of 125 union people at our location, and at the other location, it's probably 70, people. So it's a matter of really personal of sitting down with the people and saying, okay, well, I plan on moving Raul into the forklift this year. Lupi's going to be working on the assembly table, so we need to backfill them. And then we're going to need, when we first start up, we'll need, and we might even employ temps because on startup, we might need 8 people cutting material until we're caught up, that kind of a thing.
awesome. Did you do any employee investigations here?
Um, I have attended, I did attend the one day workplace investigations. The Association of Workplace Investigators in Los Angeles. So I did attend the one class there, and I was actually signed up for the end of the year to attend a 5-day certification, but that kind of fell through the cracks, obviously. So I did, but not when it involved our higher level, like for instance, when our president was forced to take an early retirement. I called someone in I told corporate we needed somebody in from the outside. That was way too over my head. Plus I was involved in the situation. like as a witness, so I could not have done a good job as an
Oh, I
investigator.
see.
Um,
I see.
but internal at the, I would say at the, administrative, hourly and production level, sure. Something goes down. The one issue that I've always had is they say, Narcy, they come in and they shut the door, right? Narcy, I want to talk to you, but I don't want you to do anything. I just want to talk to you.
Mhm.
And it's one of those like, listen, before you start, I got to tell you, depending on what you tell me, I may not be able to keep this between you and I. I may need to send this to your supervisor or to the president or to, maybe it's corporate HR. I don't know. So depending on what you tell me, I'm just letting you know it in advance. I cannot. And it's because of your rights. If your rights as an employee, I'm obligated to protect you. And that means, um, you know, following through on things that I've heard. And so depending on what you're going to tell me, so think pretty seriously before you talk to me, um, because we're friends, but this is a different matter. If you want to talk to me as a friend, that's different. But I cannot, you cannot have both ways. Um, and people get upset, and then they tell me, and I go, yeah, okay, now I have to follow up. No, I don't want this. Now you're going to make a big deal of it. Um, and then I would have to explain that it involves more than, this involves more than them. It might involve someone else. So yes, going through the procedure of finding out, okay, great. Tell me what happened, any potential witnesses, um, following up with witnesses, and then being discreet with the witnesses and saying, listen, something's come up, but you can't give them too much information. You can't tell them really who it's about. And then seeing if there was enough to actually follow through. Sometimes it's just bringing the employees together to resolve something. And then it's, on the other extreme, it's okay, yeah, I did find something. Let me talk to the employee and find out, what would they like to do as a resolution? Is that feasible? That doesn't even make sense. It might, sometimes it's very reasonable. And then sometimes, the difficult part also is, hey, what happened now that whatever you discover this or that? I want to know. I want justice. And sometimes you can't share that with the employee. You can just tell them, listen, we're taking care of it, and we can assure you it won't happen again. And we've obviously advised everyone not to take any actions or behaviors, and that might be considered as retaliatory. And if so, please let us know. That kind of stuff.
Did you do any sort of vendor negotiations when you were when you were looking at vendors for HRIS systems?
Negotiations as into, yeah. I mean, in regards to, I would say yes, because first of all, I don't have them in front of me. I looked into 4 or 5, all the way from HR Bamboo to ADP to Paychecks to Clear Company. And what we started off with was obviously pricing on modules, per employee pricing, and then that affects how many years were we willing to sign up for. Everybody has 3, but we were able to sign up for 2. And whether they're lump sum, we're always trying to do quarterly so we can spread our money around. The amount of time that money buys you from an implementation team, meaning your representative. If you can go cheap, and then they're like, well, all your training is going to be online. And if you spend a little bit more, then at least you have an actually assigned rep.
Mhm. Are you
Is that
comfortable
kind of
moving on?
is that kind of like what you were thinking, or
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
were
that's
you thinking
exactly.
more? Okay, I was thinking
That's
more
exactly.
benefits administration, where I'm hiring, or I'm talking with a broker, and we're looking at health insurance per se, at a price this much, and then well, let's take a look at different tiers, and then let's carve out certain coverages so we can reduce that pricing, because I've done a lot of that also.
Got it. Got it. Okay, that sounds good. Are you comfortable moving on to Advatech, or is there anything else you'd like to add for your previous experience?
Yeah, we can. I don't even
Okay.
know what we were talking about, but sure.
Uh, we were talking about your
Oh, so we
Williams?
were focusing on Williams. Okay, so we're going backwards to architecture.
Yes. Can you tell me about this experience? What were you doing like on a day-to-day basis when you left?
Um, sure. Very different company, totally different
Okay.
group of employees. We
Okay.
had about 150 employees when I started. Again, very similar in that I had employees in California, here in San Bernardino, Redlands area, and then I had a group in Phoenix also of probably 50 people. We had like 100 here and 50 out there, something like that.
Mhm.
Um, that was kind of fun when I joined this team because it was very similar. um, but their focus and the Phoenix, no, the California group closed, but I'm still in contact with the Phoenix group, with their people. I just talked to their HR. My HR person used to work with me a couple weeks ago. Very different. We did um, we we had governments for the contract. I mean, we had contracts for the government like GSA, and General Services Agreement stuff. And ours was really a rocket simulation for the government. That's really what we did.
Mhm.
So my recruitment focus, when I first started with them, the goal was they had an HR, they had a person doing payroll, and that's all they did. So they hired me to help to add some substance, I guess, to HR, and to recruit. Really was my main focus when I first started. I think we went, and I have to look at my numbers. I think we had about 75, maybe a little bit more, but I had to bring on like 20 or 25 engineers in 12 months, less than 12 months, to meet a GSA contract. When you do a GSA contract, they make a bid, and then they make a bid on based on engineers, whether software engineers, electrical, whatever they are, and they have the price. They do the pricing, and so when they win the bid, it's based on the fact that they are going to have, let's say, 112 people assigned to this contract. 20 will be software, 15 will be electrical, um, 10 will be mechanical, et cetera, et cetera. So we had targets. I had a target that I had to meet, and that was primarily why I was brought aboard. Really cool. I had not done that level of recruitment before. I was hiring, PhD, plasma physicists, nuclear physicists, senior scientist engineers. It was pretty cool. And again, that workforce is very different from manufacturing because it's just they don't need HR much, and if they do, it's usually related to their benefits.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So a little less strategic this role. It was a little bit more administrative, you'd say?
Um, yeah, I think so. Um, I also yeah, yes, because I also did, at that time I was the FSO, I think was, now it's been out for so long, the field, I was the office security person, um, and so I had my security clearance, and that just meant that because we handled government software programs, we had to make sure that at the end of the night, all of our computer software stuff was locked into a special, safe, and we
Mhm.
had to meet special, qualify for special processes and procedures. And then if somebody came in to work on a special, on a secret, on a secret project, there are processes in place that you check it out, they sign it out, you sign it to them, like a chain of custody. So um, we had to maintain that. Benefits. I had a benefits person with me at the time, and she's up north in Washington now. Um, and then I actually had an HR. She was more of an assistant, but she helped out with security, a lot of security office stuff. Um, and so I did a lot of the, security, benefits, recruitment. I'm trying to think what else. But it was less hectic than manufacturing. Pretty stable. Um, at one time, for a few months, I was pretty consumed with finding a new office because I was kind of like the office manager.
Mhm.
We had grown, so we grew, and I had to go out with the local commercial brokers looking at office sites and trying to negotiate whether they, we were moving, they were built, or we had to move in